Hello, and welcome to Skeptic's Forge. I am Phoenix Nightingale, secular humanist, skeptic, and atheist. Now, you may be wondering what those are. Secular humanism, quite simply, is, well, humanism, first off, is that you believe that humanity has the capacity of generating their own sense of morality and their own code of morality and ethics, and are perfectly fine functioning that way. Secular humanism is that no religious dogma, no belief in a god or gods or anything of that nature uh, has any influence over the philosophy, morals, and ethics that you end up coming up with. It does not enter into the equation at all. And you can be religious and still be a secular humanist. It's just that specifically those moral systems are not influenced by any religious belief. As far as skepticism goes, I adhere primarily to scientific skepticism. Basically, the same principles that govern science are the same principles that govern my own mode of thought. So, methodological naturalism is my uh, modus operandi, basically, for evaluating situations. And as far as the atheism goes, that is the current conclusion I have when I apply the scientific method to evaluating claims, the methodological naturalism. And as such, I currently do not believe in a god or gods of any flavor. That does not mean I believe that they don't exist. I just don't believe that they do. And that's going to come into play a lot in this as the series progresses. And let me give a brief explanation of what I mean. For between any explanation for any claim, you have the possibility of it being true or false. That's an actual dichotomy. It can either be true or it can be false. There's no in between. Now, it can be partly true and partly false if it contains several different elements, but that's because it's a umbrella claim of many claims within a larger claim. So each individual claim has to be evaluated separately, and those can only be true or false. But your positions on those are going to be either it's true, it's false, you don't know, or you just don't care. Well, with skepticism, don't care doesn't actually work for us. We can't do anything with it, so we throw that one out the window as far as what I'll be doing here on this channel. But determining whether it's true or false, or that we don't know or can't know, depending on what the claim is or what the argument for the claim is, that's what we'll be trying to determine as I progress through this. Now, why is the channel called Skeptic's Forge? Well, thanks to the Bill Moran School of Bladesmithing, they broke that down into a nice four-step process of forging, grinding, heat treat, and finishing. You can actually add in a fifth one in there at the very beginning, smelting. I would say that evolution handles the smelting for us, gives us a mind, the raw material from which to work with. The forging process would be pretty much our early environments from before we have the ability to think critically on our own, which starts at about 8 years old. And once you hit about your teens, somewhere in the early teens, you start to further develop your sense of individuality. From there, it falls entirely in your court. You can forge yourself into whatever you want. A lot of religious viewpoints tend to try to forge your mind into a blunt instrument and make it so that every obstacle you come across, every problem you encounter, there's always the one solution. The religious dogma is the answer to everything. And that is not what we're trying to achieve on this channel. We are trying to determine whether or not even the religious dogma is even true. And for that, we need something a lot more subtle. We need to be able to cut through the bullshit that's out there, and we need to have it strong enough to be able to withstand the blows of all the hammers that everybody is trying to swing our way. We need to learn how to forge our minds, to think critically and skeptically. So the forging process, like I said, that's primarily covered. The rough initial shaping that you get is done by your parents or your early life environment. The grinding process is primarily where the skepticism first kicks in, where you start going, okay, these beliefs may not be true. I'm not going to hold on to them. I'm getting rid of all this excess material that I probably don't need. The heat treat part comes in when the mind is, the whole purpose of the heat treat is to temper the mind, so temper the metal. So I'm switching between the reality of smithing and the analogy I'm working with. Sorry, my mind's that's one of the things I'm working on fixing. But the mind itself, we want it to be able to withstand the all the stuff that's being thrown our way and come out of it still intact without being marred by all the craziness that's thrown at us. We don't want to break under the pressure. We don't want to bend. We don't want to chip and shatter. We don't want to lose the edge that we end up developing. The heat treat in smithing is what does that to a blade. And for your mind, skepticism and critical thinking is exactly what you need for that. So the skepticism is trimming away, giving you that rough edge. The heat treat is the critical thinking. The finishing in a blade, that would be your final polishing of the blade, you putting sharpening the edge, putting a handle on the blade, and making it something that you can wield and will actually cut. And for that takes experience, learning how to navigate through conversations, through arguments, and becoming more familiar with things. So that's actually a little bit beyond the smithing, in that you're familiarizing yourself with all the movements that need to be done, so you know how to what makes for a blade. You need to know how you're going to move the blade in order to craft a good handle, and how to make it feel right, feel natural. With navigating through arguments, you need a familiarity. You need to know. You need to have a good handle on the critical thinking skills in order to be able to navigate through all the obstacles. And yeah, this is a loose analogy. I'm still working on it. I'm still playing with it, but I find it fascinating, and fascinating enough that I'm actually naming my channel after it. And yes, this is partly inspired by the Forged on Fire series, but I was already planning on being a bladesmith when I was much younger, and actually attempted it for a little bit when I was fresh out of the Army back in '08. But unfortunately, the person I tried to apprentice under only accepted me as an employee, not an apprentice, didn't teach me anything. I never saw hot forging there ever. It was all cold forging. And with a 3-hour commute each way and only getting paid $8 an hour, it wasn't worth going back after I got laid off after 1 month of being there. So, but I've actually just recently started a kind of impromptu apprenticeship with one of the Forged on Fire winners here in the Austin area. So I'll see how that goes. Right now I'm not really, it's not something that I can just jump right in and start making a living off of, and I'm currently not sure if that's the direction I want to go anymore. But I'm still fascinated by blades and how to make them. I'm I love crafting things, so being a skilled craftsman is very appealing to me. So I'm sticking with the forged analogy for the time being. Now, what I'm going to be doing on this channel, sure, I'm going to be discussing the critical thinking skills, how skepticism works and whatnot, but I'll be doing that piecemeal as I go through evaluating, to start with, just to start with, um, I will be evaluating some Christian apologetics. Now, whether or not this is not me just going in, oh, I'm going to tear it apart. No, I'm going to see what what claims are being made, primarily off of the cover first off, and then I'm going to go through the book and see, okay, what arguments are they making for the advertised claims on the cover? The cover is advertisement. The pages in the book are the argument. So, what claims are being made in that advertisement on the cover? I'll evaluate those, and through the skepticism and critical thinking skills I've developed so far, I will test my blade on their apologetics. And hey, if I hold up, great. I did a good job of forging my mind. If if the apologetics hold up, then, well, congratulations. I won't be an atheist anymore. We'll see. We'll see. But throughout this whole entire thing, I'm going to do this little by little. I'm not going to do the whole book all in one go. I'm going to do this little by little, explaining my thought process as I go. I'll be paraphrasing so that I don't have to deal with copyright issues. But I'll explain exactly where I am in the book so that should you want to follow along, you can. But I encourage feedback. If anybody thinks that I'm wrong or would love to add in new information, please feel free to comment. I'd love the feedback. I'm mostly doing this so that I can share my thoughts with people, primarily to start with the friends and family that asked me to review these books in the first place. Whether they wanted me to just rip it apart, or they sincerely thought that the arguments inside would convince me of their own position. Either way, I have friends and family that would love for me to review these books to start with, and we'll go from there. But give me your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Just please cite sources, make sure you clearly thought through anything that you say. I would prefer not to start up arguments in the comments section. I'd rather just be able to go, hey, thank you. This will help. And if I find it of note that would apply, I'll make to what I've done. The next video, I'll make corrections. I'll state that thanks to some so-and-so's comment, I've changed my position on something I've already covered. Let's learn and grow together. Hope you enjoy the journey.